Hi everyone, I'm Zan, your astrologer, and welcome to your horoscope for the week of February the 15th, 2021. We have an amazing, shocking, and surprising week ahead of us with an incredibly powerful and active sky. And also, it is going to be next week when we reach an important milestone in our journeys through this extremely innovative Aquarian year 2021, when we have the first meeting of Saturn and Uranus in a conversation of tension square. So be ready for the unexpected. Be ready for shocking, surprising news, especially coming from the world stage, but personally and individually as well, because at the time of the square, the moon is going to be conjunct Uranus, and the moon is extremely personal. It is the symbol of the soul, our emotional world. So something is definitely going to surprise us, even shock us, even shake us to the very core. But I'll speak more about this energy just a little bit later, because at the beginning of the week, before the square between Saturn and Uranus perfects itself, we still have Mercury retrograde conjunct Jupiter in the sign of Aquarius. This may mean communication, news about certain issues from the past. It can be documents, legal work, communication with authorities about matters which are pending, matters which were initiated before this Mercury retrograde season started. Or it can even be something of legal, official nature, or even a communication from a friend, from a family, someone from your past, which can clarify a situation or give you a new sense of direction. Also at the same time, we are going to be having Mars speaking in a sextile, a conversation of harmony with Neptune. And as I said in my previous videos, this is such a wonderful energy for creativity, for artists to express yourself, to invest your energy into creative projects, or simply to tune up your life through spiritual means like meditation, yoga, combining physical activities with spiritual activities, for example, breath work, or expressing yourself through artistic means. Even if you have absolutely no tendency with any kind of art, even if you don't have any kind of talent, you can simply just play with colors, try out painting, or whatever it is that you are attracted to, and it might surprise you, not necessarily how good you are, but how relaxing it is, or how it can connect you with the self, with your own creational energies. And naturally, it has also a very healing quality to it as well, because trying out creative activities can simply put the inner adult to sleep, to relaxation mode, and give way to the inner child to just play, to just express itself, to just experiment, and that in itself is incredibly healing, regenerative, and it is such a good way to fight stress. There is also another side to this story, which is maybe not as inspirational, or inspirational in the unfavorable sense, where Venus also converses in a conversation of tension with Mars. Now, psychologically speaking, this may represent minor setbacks, you not getting exactly what you want, certain things not meeting your exact expectations, Venus in Aquarius, and this may cause a little bit of frustration, this may cause a little bit of disappointment, but nothing too serious, nothing that a mature adult person cannot overcome. And also, Mars being in an earthly sign of Taurus, which has so much to do with money, values, currency, finances, this Venus might inspire us to overspend, to invest money or any kind of value, any kind of material energy into something that ultimately doesn't really serve our greatest good, practically speaking, for the long-term future. But since this is a short-lasting aspect, the biggest, symbolically speaking, of course, danger is if we do something of Venusian nature which cannot be undone. Because this square between Mars and Venus might inspire us to do certain extreme gestures. For example, get a tattoo which is permanent, and it might seem like such a very good idea at that time, and we might regret it later, or the outcome of the tattoo is definitely not gonna meet our expectations. It can also be like getting some kind of futuristic or trendy or way too extreme haircut, hair dye, anything that has to do with fashion, and we also might regret this later on. So, if during this time, at the very beginning of the week, we are inspired to do anything of this nature, be sure to think twice and be sure to truly rationalize things if it's really a good idea, or better said, if you can live with any outcome. Another expression of this energy, Mars, if it would converse harmoniously with Venus, it would mean the power of persuasion, attractions, etc. But when it speaks in a square, be very careful how much force, effort, power, energy you put into persuasive means. If, for example, if you want to convince someone, or if you want to surprise someone romantically, you want to shower someone with gifts, etc., because it might not really be received in the most pleasant manner. It might be just a little bit too much, so always have measure no matter how inspired you feel. And of course, this energy can also be seen from a romantic perspective, where at this time you might feel an incredible, irresistible attraction to someone who is extremely outside of your comfort zone, someone who is extremely distinctive, and there is nothing wrong with the attraction. Just know that as soon as this energy fades, your feelings and this attraction might also fade away. So it's not really a good idea to make any commitments and promises until you are sure. But it is a good energy to get to know different people, especially who are very, very different than your usual circle of friends, or very different than your own personality. And now let's talk about the star of this week's astrological show, Saturn squaring Uranus in the sky. And as I said, this is their first meeting, first out of 3. The second one we're going to be having in the summer, and the third and final one in December. So pay close attention to what is happening in your life and also the world stage, and Aquarius, in your culture, in your country, in your local community, in your circle of friends, acquaintances, etc. Because it might be that very same theme starting next week that is going to resume or take a different expression in the summer and of course in the winter. Now, from a global perspective, from a collective perspective, you might have heard every single astrologer talking about this, because it is that important. Saturn in the sign of Aquarius is all about the stability, rules, regulations, customs, the very foundation, the principles, especially the governing principles, and since Jupiter is also there, the legislation, which keeps society, the human collective, working, united, stable, functioning, grounded. But, it is the old. It is how things always used to be. It is those elements which have always worked, which we took for granted. Where the positive side of this is, I think the best way to understand is to exemplify like human rights and all the international treaties which protect humanitarianism, the individual freedom, equality, equity, etc. So that is the positive expression of this energy. And the negative energy is everything that is outdated. Everything that simply no longer works, because as a collective we're already stepped into the future. So that means that certain rules, regulations, structures, social structures, modus operandi has to adapt and change and upgrade as well. And the upgrade is definitely Uranus. Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius. But the funny thing is that Saturn is the ancient ruling planet. So both of these big power players have so much to do with this specific part of the sky, which is all about the future, our collective future, but also our individual future. Aquarius, even though it is a fixed sign, it is incredibly dual, where if that duality can exist in perfect harmony, it can bring forward the highest expression. For example, if we have a harmonious collective and also a harmonious individual who is the basic nucleus of that collective, well, that means that we have a well-functioning society, a well-functioning species. And this is where Saturn demands sacrifices in order to preserve that state of harmony. And what does this mean? Well, for example, an individual has to sacrifice certain liberties, certain personal liberties for the greater good. And the mask with the coronavirus situation is a very good example for this. And at the same time, the collective also has to sacrifice something for the well-being and happiness of the individual. For example, the authorities helping out, charities, humanitarian project, non-profit organizations, where the profit is the sacrifice and all the good that it does for the individual is the well-being, which of course leads to a greater state of harmony. So this is how we can understand this very strong Aquarian energy. So what does the square do when Uranus speaks in tension with Saturn? Well, it simply means out with the old and in with the new. And out of both of these planets, it is obvious that Uranus is the stronger one, and Uranus is always going to win this fight. But perhaps it is the way that it operates what causes this tension, because Uranus is extremely rebellious. It doesn't want the new in 10 years to be installed, so to speak. It wants it here and now. And it will do anything in its power to catalyze the new, the next, the futuristic. And it is this quality of Uranus which highlights all the social unrest, all the protests, all the mediatic warfare, the clashes of ideologies, of opinions, of different approaches how to solve the global crisis. The sheer energy of Uranus acts like a rallying call, awakening the visionaries, awakening the inventors, the innovative people, the geniuses, the revolutionaries, of course. And we can see this playing out in every single area, in the field of science, for example, medical science, with all the different kind of treatments and vaccines, but not only the COVID situation, for many other problems that we are facing medically. It also means the most unique kind of research. It also means mind-blowing new technologies, some of which are highly controversial. For example, the chip in the brain, which is of course meant to regulate certain functions to improve the quality of life. But the ethics and morality of all of it, now that is Saturn. There is a strong opposition, and this will play out simply in absolutely everything politically, or better said, especially politically, because that area is definitely going to be a war zone where the weapons are words, communication, ideologies, the power to inspire the masses, etc. But perhaps the most important part to this is the financial economic aspect, because Uranus is speaking from the earth sign of Taurus, which rules values, currency, money, financial institutions, etc. So this is most definitely going to cause some kind of massive financial earthquake, but something which leads to an innovation, something which leads to a most ingenious solution, like a collective eureka moment. But also, it is definitely going to have a very strong opposition. We must not forget that both Uranus and Aquarius are very, very humanitarian, people-oriented, liberty, equality, equity. And Pluto is still in the sign of Capricorn. Pluto is the symbol of power, especially money, finances, big corporations, big organizations, Capricorn. So they might oppose a potential solution to the financial crisis, which might be way too humanitarian, way too people-oriented, way too generous to the individual and smaller communities, and it might disadvantage the big corporations, for example, big pharma. But as I said, this is just one side of the story. In with the new and out with the old applies to absolutely everything right now. Everything that affects us as a collective, as an Aquarius. And there is going to be a lot of tension as well, because as I said, some people are definitely going to support the new, the next, the revolutionary, these innovations, while another part is definitely going to oppose. And one of the potential means that this can trigger people is that maybe the coronavirus rules, regulations, restrictions, for example, the vaccine passport and certain restrictions which seem to go against the individual's basic rights and liberties. Now, if anything like that is even just considered as a theory to become legally binding, well, you can imagine that it's going to stir a lot of rebellion. This is just one of the ways this energy can play out, and at the same time, it's also perfectly true regarding technology and scientific discoveries. So who knows what kind of new information, let's say a cosmological discovery or something groundbreaking, massive, that will change our lives so profoundly that nothing will ever be the same again, reaches daylight, because Uranus is also epiphany, sudden realization, secrets coming out. It can also be an unexpected rise or transformation, change in cryptocurrency or banking systems or something that has to do with money in a collective sense. It can also be very unusual weather phenomenon or natural events that might seem unexplainable. And it can even represent an earthquake, because that is Uranus in Taurus. And as I said earlier, this energy is also quite personal, so it's definitely one way or another going to be playing out as a surprise, as a shock, as something unexpected in our personal lives, because at that time, Uranus is going to be conjunct with the moon. The moon is exalted, very strong in the sign of Taurus. Our values, everything that we love, everything that attracts us on the soul level. So it doesn't matter if we react to some kind of information coming from the outside, a communication from our circle of friends, family, acquaintances, also Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, someone from the past, or if it's just an inner epiphany, a soul level realization of what we want to accomplish in our own personal futures, because Aquarius is also our hopes and dreams, and Saturn is all our limitations, everything that prevents us from living that, doing that, accomplishing that. So depending on where this energy, 7th degree of Taurus and 7th degree of Aquarius falls in your personal chart, that is the areas of life which can clash, or where this powerful inner wake-up call can simply flood over your life. Of course, personally and neither collectively, it doesn't have to be anything negative. It doesn't have to be anything shocking in the bad sense. But the energy of revolution is still there, so it is definitely innovative, it is definitely stepping in the future and leaving our comfort zone and forgetting the old way of life, the old normality, how we used to live. Now that is 100% part of the story, and whatever happens, however this energy manifests, is gonna be a big reminder that there is no old normality anymore. Either we adapt and we find structure in the present, in however we can adapt our lives to the present moment circumstances, or we are gonna be in big trouble. Especially from a psychological perspective, the moon conjunct Taurus. And this can also be a big realization, both individually and collectively, that something which used to be very valuable, which used to hold a lot of worth just a year ago, a couple of years ago, maybe a month ago, is worthless right now, and something new, the futuristic version took its place already. And Uranus is very quick, so it can even happen overnight. So as I said earlier, just pay close attention to what is going on, both on the world stage, in your culture, in your country, and also in your personal life, because that might give you clues, it might set the stage to however that situation is going to evolve in the summer and winter. And even if we get the most unfavorable expression of this energy, collectively speaking, because Uranus can be extremely radical, and its transit in the sign of Taurus, well, the last time it happened, it coincided with the Great Depression. Radical leaders, radical gestures, etc. Of course, that doesn't mean that it has to take place once more the same way, especially that we have learned so much and so painfully from the mistakes of the past, the chances are we're definitely not gonna repeat them. So that is why I think personally that however this plays out has to be something more symbolic, like, as I said earlier, legislation change, mediatic or political warfare, ideologies clashing. So whatever happens, if there is a lot of protest, rebellion, uprising, confusion and chaos, because that is also Uranus, please try your very, very best to simply stay detached from that situation. Do not allow the fear, do not allow the hysteria to flood over your life and take over your consciousness, because this is simply a pivotal moment in humanity's history. This is a massive world change, like all of the world changes that we have as a species experienced. So of course it's uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be doom and gloom, and what really, really matters is that we focus on what is important to us personally, our inner worlds. So there is no reason why we should get mixed up in all that drama, violence or confusion. We have to trust that as a species we went through so many really destructive events, most of which were made by our own hands, For example, the world wars, famines, and any kind of economical, political crisis. For example, in my culture, the socialism, the communism, that we really don't have to repeat all of that over again. And at the end of the day, an ideal ideology, worldview, a vision of the future, a plan, anything that might have to do with Aquarius, well, it is just a thought. Is it truly worth it getting into violence and just projecting the worst and most aggressive part of the self in order to consolidate that? Because an ideology, a thought, a plan, something intellectual can be countered by the same thing. But I am also aware that if it comes to economic measures, as in money, well-being, welfare, if anything affects that directly, well then people will definitely take to the streets, because they will perceive that as a very personal threat. After all, Eris, goddess of discord, rebellion, my rights, my sovereignty is in the sign of Aries, the warrior sign, and it squares Pluto all throughout 2021. So if certain measures, Saturn the restrictions, reach a certain kind of unacceptable limit, well, people will definitely retaliate. But please be careful, and as I said, try to stay detached. And if anything, the moon is conjunct Uranus. Moon is the soul and emotional world, and Uranus is the ultimate truth. In the sign of Taurus, what makes you truly valuable. So instead, try focusing on that. Try embracing your epiphanies, your realizations, your inner truth. See life as an adventure where it doesn't matter how the external reality is playing out, opportunities can still exist in order to express your distinctiveness, your uniqueness, whatever makes you one of a kind, the personal Uranus. And also, a last part of this energy, this can also have physical effects on us. This very active Uranus, especially conjunct the moon, can make us extremely nervous, anxious. It will definitely have the Schumann resonance spike and go a little bit chaotic. So if you're feeling very, I don't even know what words to use, agitated for no real reason, restless or anxious or a little bit panicky, know that this will pass very quickly. The moon moves on in just a few hours, so don't mistake this as something bad imminently happening to you or anything like that. Now moving on the 18th, the sun moves into the sign of Pisces, and this opens a period of karmic cleansing, purification, being confronted with the past and even the distant past. It gives us the opportunity to get aligned with our unconscious. Again, Pisces, the 12th house. Certain personal secrets can be revealed. Personal realizations, especially about the past issues, karmic relations, are going to be emphasized on. But each and every Pisces season is one where we detoxify ourselves spiritually and psychologically, and of course even physically. So this is always a perfect period to sort out all of our unconscious blockages, everything that bothers us deep inside. And it doesn't even have to be anything negative. It is equally a really good period to embrace our spiritual side, our artistic side, to go deep within ourselves and just connect to our divine beings. This is also a really good period when dreams become prophetic, when they have meaning, when they bear a symbolism either from our unconscious mind or maybe from the divine. This is also a good period to listen to music, to focus on our healing journeys, to balance out karma, for example, by being compassionate, understanding, empathic, helping out others, being a positive, inspirational force in the lives of others, friends, family, or total strangers. A really good period for humanitarian efforts, especially that we also have this stellium in Aquarius, which is also humanitarian energy. And naturally, as the sun moves through the sign of Pisces, this can represent a lot of karmic completions in our personal lives. Now, what I'm about to say next is purely speculation. It may not have any meaning whatsoever from an astrological perspective, or actually from any perspective, yet it really catches the eye. Mercury is going to be at 11 degrees and 11 minutes Aquarius. Venus is going to be in 22 degrees 22 minutes Aquarius, and Mars 22 minutes 44 minutes Taurus, all of them happening at the same day. Now, as I said, from an astrological perspective, this may mean absolutely nothing. But for those people who really got a lot of mirror number synchronicities over the past, 3, 4, 5 years, or who are really in tune to this sort of stuff, this may mean something. Like Mercury is the planet of the mind, communication, maybe some communication from the past 11/11, or maybe what 11/11 means for you personally, purely personally, may be revealed at that time through who knows what kind of synchronicity. Venus is the planet of love and beauty, the queen of the heart. 2222 may represent some kind of union, some kind of partnership, some kind of connection, or maybe some kind of choice. For example, in tarot, twos always speak about some kind of choices. And Mars, Mars is the planet of action, our energy, drive, focus, in Venus's home sign of Taurus. So once again, the 22 might speak about some kind of choices, or maybe meeting someone or something happening which gives sense to 2222 for you personally. But as I said, this is purely speculation. This is just what I think. This is just how I interpret this. So don't take this part that very seriously. Now also towards the very end of the week, we have a mixture of energies. We have some aspects of tension, where Mercury, sandwiched between Jupiter and Saturn, is standing still in the sky, preparing to go direct the next day. And of course, it squares Uranus along with Saturn. So this can mean a moment of clarity, an epiphany. You understand something, you process something, or you express your truth, or you're finally able to make a decision or a choice, even if it's uncomfortable, Uranus. But it can also mean that time is up for something, and you have to make a choice like it or not. But there is a lot of help in the sky, because the 20th and 21st of February, as the moon traverses the sign of Gemini, it is going to be holding trine, harmonious celestial conversations with all the Aquarian planets. And what does that mean? Well, it can mean either inner inspiration, the wisdom of the soul helping you out, your intuition telling you what to choose. Gemini is a dual sign. And if it's good at something, it is finding the middle path. But it can also be receiving advice from someone who you truly respect and trust. It can also represent any kind of help, anything that you feel on a soul and emotional level that truly helps you, comforts you. Or it can simply be good news coming from someone or something, even if that someone is like an institution or a person representing an official institution or an official position, anything like that. But it can also be friends, Aquarius. It can also be siblings, a very, very close family, Gemini, cousins. Or it can also be simply your higher self, your experience, your life experience, your rationality, the quickness of your mind. Aligning, of course, with the moon as in the expression of the soul. And we have another very positive aspect, which even though is not going to be exact next week, it is going to be exact on the 24th of February, but it is still going to be very influential because Mars from Taurus is going to be holding a trine with Pluto from Capricorn. Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. So this is a conversation of power. This is a conversation of action. This is when you go and do something and conquer. This is when you express or use your power. Or it can even be something fated. Pluto comes into play, helping you make a choice, take an action, or it can simply be something which has to do with money, values, material life. Like Pluto in Capricorn can be your professional influence, a breakthrough, impressing a superior and you get a promotion, being rewarded financially, or both Mars and Pluto are energies of the seeker, especially treasure seeker. So maybe you somehow manage to find something truly valuable in your life, or to integrate something valuable in your life, and it will improve your material situation or social status quo, reputation, or you simply gain material power, Pluto in Capricorn. It can also be something that you have worked on in the past quite meticulously, and the rewards of that only show themselves at this time. Or also Pluto, the planet of transformation, alchemy, something that you transformed, something that you work with to change, or the change you desire so much in your life. It can also be like a psychological energy of desires, sheer willpower, changing your life physically as well, because both of these planets speak from earth signs, which means manifestation, which means that whatever happens, and the trine is a blessing of course, it will affect your material life. So it can be something really, really positive, like achieving success, achieving breakthrough, rewards, or your actions, your efforts, your willpower, doing exactly what it should, you getting what you intend, your work, efforts, moments of courage, self-expression, believing in your value and self-worth paying off handsomely. But it can also be a fated event, because when it comes to Pluto, there is always fate involved in that. And yet another expression of this energy, maybe you eliminate from your life something that is unpleasant, something that you do not wish it to be there anymore. For example, a debt, a toxic person, a relationship, something that is keeping you from expressing your true value, your true worth as a professional. This blessing can take so very many shapes and forms. So this concludes your horoscope. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all the support, all the shares, likes and comments. I do hope that it was useful. Until next time, bye for now.